My name is Gus Gagliardi, and this is the Talk Energy Podcast. If you're watching this video, take a moment, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or you can follow me on your favorite podcast app. You can leave a review. That would help me out a bunch. This episode is sponsored by Blockware Solutions. You ever thought about mining Bitcoin? Bitcoin mining is the best way to dollar cost average Bitcoin over time at a discount. Blockware Solutions has been Bitcoin mining since 2013. They've sold over 250,000 ASICs, placed over 200 megawatts for their hosting clients, and mined over 1,000 Bitcoin in the Blockware pool. If you're interested in learning more, you can visit blockwaresolutions.com/energy. That's blockwaresolutions.com/energy. This episode's guest is me and my brother. It's actually a bonus episode and one that we did for fun. So we're gonna release it in 2 parts, and I'll try to mix it in with the regular episodes this week. But we decided to sit down and just tell my story. There's just so many new guests and people on, and the listens have been great the last 6 months, and just a lot of random stuff that I see in the social media world about me and my background, and the majority of it is completely inaccurate and not true at all. A lot of people just don't know who I am, and so I thought it would be fun to do an origins episode and just talk about my story. The part 1's gonna be me growing up, my brother and I telling stories and our background, where we're from. The second half's gonna be more about my professional career. So if you're interested, you can tune in. And for those that wanna know, I'm an open book. Hope you enjoy the show. What's up, dude?
Yo, man.
How's it going?
It's going good.
You're in the interview seat.
Yeah, man. So I just wanted to flip the script on you. We're talking about good ideas for content and novel ways to go at kind of get into interesting questions and interesting answers, and wanted to kind of explore your journey and your history, and kind of do just a typical podcast interview on you and dig deep, because I think that's interesting content and some stuff that we haven't heard from you before.
I've done a little bit on the Talk Energy Direct stuff. I think the biggest thing for me, and when we were talking about doing this, was just there's a lot of new people that are watching the podcast, like new followers, new people on Twitter, and just in general, it feels like the podcast has grown. It's been great, but because of the growth and because of the new people, it's just a lot of people don't know me, don't really know my background, don't really know our companies, and I could see why it would be confusing. We've got a lot of different things that I post on Twitter and other places. And so, hold on a second, turn this headphone. My headphone's really hot. Maybe that's, which one's number 2? This one. Okay, that's better.
Oh yeah, that one's cranked way.
Number 1?
No, go to back more, because yours is cranked super hot. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. I'm going to turn these back up. Okay, so yeah, it's basically new people coming in, a lot of different things that I have going on personally. I thought about doing a Talk Energy Direct. You graciously were actually you didn't even volunteer. I asked you. I was like, dude, you should just interview me instead, because I'm going to sit here and just talk and monologue, and it's weird. And plus you have a podcast, so we can plug your podcast.
Hey.
Where can people find you?
Firecodetech.com. You can listen to it wherever you find your podcasts. If you like fire and life safety business, I'm a registered fire protection engineer. I talk about all that sort of biz. But yeah, I think it's when we were kicking this around, when you listen to podcasts, if you don't get in on the ground floor, you listen from the top down. You start with the newest episodes, and you kind of slowly work backwards until you can get to the base of the podcast. So, there's kind of been this new following and churning new backlog of people. So I think it's a cool idea to kind of dig deep on your history and your past, and just a little bit of our past, with family and upbringing and all that, as a way to produce new valid content. But yeah. Well,
I mean, there's a lot of weird, so I won't go into all the details, but there's a lot of weird things. You get on social media and you start doing this content, and then people think that they know you because they see your posts and stuff, and then you'll see a lot of random stuff I'll see things that are floating around about me that just aren't true at all, about me or about with the companies that I have, and so I think just talking about these things is good. Like, it gives the new listeners some perspective, and it gives the old listeners maybe some perspective too. Yeah. They may have not had, because let's face it, like, There's 102 episodes out right now. It's a lot of content. It's tough for people to get to them. But I'll let you take it from however you want to take it. How do you want to start?
So, you know, I always start off my podcast the same way. So I figured we'd start this one in a similar fashion and just say...
I'm good. I'm not even going to edit that out. Sorry.
There's the thumbnail. There's the thumbnail. But yeah, just get started on... We're going to go further back than I would normally for a professional interview. But yeah, I just want to get like your origin story. Like take me from the beginning. Like where were you like born? Where were you raised? Like start at the as far back as we can. So we're gonna slow build this.
Yes, we grew up in Bixby, so Tulsa technically, but South Tulsa, so Bixby, Oklahoma, and we were in a little yellow house that was out like in basically a field. I mean, it was pretty out there in terms of like rural at the time. Like I want to say it was like 40 minutes from downtown. You probably don't remember, you were little when we moved. It was a good distance from downtown, 30 to 40 minutes. And you take 75 up to Tulsa. So not too far from Glenpool, kind of that part of the world. And we lived in like a small 1-story house, and our parents, our mom is from that area. Our dad is from the Northeast, from Pittsburgh or thereabouts, up air, as they would say.
Up air.
And we've done an episode with Dad, and people want to go check that out. There's like Dad Part 1, Dad Part 2.
Yeah.
Talks about his career. So I won't go into a ton of details about it, but went to school up there, ended up getting a geology degree, wanted to get a teaching degree, got a geology degree, which put him in the oil and gas business, which then moved him down to Texas and Oklahoma, worked offshore, did different things. And hold on a second. Oh, I said, Michelle, I can edit this out. Are you downstairs? What's that noise? No, recording a podcast. Sorry.
That's okay.
Trying to make this in. I'm going to edit this myself, so cut out whatever we want. Where are we at? 6 minutes. So, so the business brought him down to Oklahoma and Texas, and while working in Oklahoma, met Mom. And Mom's background, because we haven't really talked about her. She hasn't done an episode. I should get her to come on and do one. It's not energy related. I think it would just be cool.
She's been in the oil and gas industry.
Actually, that's true. She has been. I mean, it's been a while, but yeah, she has been in the oil and gas industry, and we could talk about it. But
she's got perspective for sure.
She does. And so we met Mom in Tulsa. They were both young professionals. I think they lived there for 18 years.
Yeah.
And growing up, it was like a pretty typical, normal kind of, I guess, like suburban, lifestyle. Although, like, there were ups and downs with oil and gas. Like, I wouldn't say, like, growing up, we had, like, a lot of money or anything. I would think we were just kind of like a standard sort of middle class.
Yeah. Mom's an accountant. Dad's a geologist.
Type of family.
Lots of big ups and downs. I can remember.
Like a 1,500 square foot house.
Yeah.
3 bedrooms. Just sort of lived out there in Bixby, and that area is blown up now and is like crazy. Super like developed. You go out there and it's just like insane. But when we moved out there was like a dozen houses in that neighborhood when I was little. There's like old VHS videos.
Huge field behind
and it was
the
just
house.
Like fields everywhere, like around us. I mean, it was pretty rural. And I'm assuming, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming like living that far out was like cheaper than like living.
That makes sense.
Because like look at the
Plus,
suburbs
Dad
now.
always likes the nature and outdoors, and I bet he wanted something that was
right and a deal.
A deal.
Well, I think too, like back then, I think interest rates were like really high at that time.
Like 18%.
And like really high, like predatory house loans,
balloon loans, and all that.
I think they like said their first, I don't know, this is maybe like too much personal information, but they said that like their first house loan was like really predatory. But anyways, like that was like pretty standard upbringing. And then we moved to Edmond when I was going into high school. So I was in 9th grade.
Third grade for me.
Yeah, 3rd grade. We're like 5.5 years apart, but like 6 grades apart. So like a decent distance for siblings, relatively. Like even my 2 kids that are spread out the most are closer in age than than you and I were.
That's crazy to think about.
I know.
Yeah, and what's crazy about well, not crazy. What's interesting about, when we moved to Edmond, it was the same thing. We moved to a neighborhood that was effectively a farm that had been recently made into a neighborhood, and our house backed up to a field once again. And over time,
the burbs again.
Yeah, and over time was developed into like a sprawling suburb.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a similar theme.
Yeah, it was very much the burbs, and we went to Edmond North, and that was at the time, I think it's still a good school, but it was a good experience there. And then mom and dad, at that point, mom had I guess I don't want to say retired, but she had kind of stopped working, was staying home. Dad was working again. If you want to go check out his story, we kind of go into in depth. I don't want to play through all of his jobs that he had, but he was independent and was on his own, which is a fancy way for saying he didn't have a real, he was unemployed for a period, but then was doing his own thing, going out, getting his own prospects with geology, and going out and participating in wells and investing in wells. And then got a full, a job with an actual company. His story, you can go and listen to that. And then we went to North, and then I went to Oklahoma State and had just a great time. I'll just talk about Oklahoma State for a second, because it means a lot to me, and was just a place that is very special. Spent a long time there. Yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in my undergrad.
What degrees did you get?
Yeah, so in my undergrad, I remember I was 17 years old, and I was sitting on a ski lift in Cresta Butte with Dad, and it was spring break.
Yeah,
I think of senior, maybe junior year. I would have been 18 if it was senior year, so maybe I was 18. But it was sitting on a ski lift, and I had gotten into OSU, so I guess I would have been 18. And it was okay, you got to pick a major. And I remember there was the deal where you went and did the career day thing, and or not career day, but you went and did the enrollment deal,
the walk around.
Yeah, the walk around thing where they made you pick what you wanted to do. And Dad was what do you want to do? And I was just well, and we talked about oil and gas, and he's kind of look, my advice is that it's a really up and down business. It's it's really brutal. He's we've gone through some really, really painful times as a family, being in that industry. And he was and you can only live in certain places pretty much. He's you can live in basically Oklahoma City, Houston, maybe Dallas, Denver. But back then it wasn't even the shale revolution hadn't even happened. So this is pre-shale revolution. We're talking 2004, 2005 maybe. Would have been 05. So it was kind of really just the shale revolution was beginning. We didn't know about the Northeast necessarily, that was going to turn into this huge thing. So the amount of cities was very limited that you could live in. And then it was also the cautionary tale of this is really brutal. And people that get in this industry, it's very up and down. Yeah. And so he was what do you want to do? Where do you want to live? And we were literally having this conversation on a ski lift. And I was I want to do, as an 18-year-old person, I was I want to do this. I was I just want to snowboard.
Young gung-ho guy, lots of energy, loved athletics and being active. And so you were just this seems awesome. Well, why not this?
Yeah, exactly. I was I just want to do this. I was I want to snowboard. I was I want to be able to move and go wherever I want. I thought I just want to travel. And so he's all right, well, look for a major where you can travel and you can live wherever you want. And at the time, it was Oklahoma State had the number one program in the U.S. for hospitality management, hotel and restaurant, and I think they call it hospitality management. Yeah, hospitality business administration. And so that's something that I just and it's a Bachelor of Science, they're basically a business degree, but they tailor it to that hospitality side, and they also let you pick what you want. You can do finance or management, electives. And so it's it was very much business, but it has this hospitality slant to it. And I just was okay, well, this is something that I can do. And I had no idea. I was 18 years old.
Right.
So, and actually to backpedal a little bit, because I know we kind of went straight into college, but one other thing I want to talk about, because you mentioned the athletic thing, this is relatively formative, was in high school, I didn't play a ton of sports, but the main thing that I did was wrestling.
7 years.
And more than that, actually I did it from about 9, almost 10 years. I did it from 8 or 9 all the way through 18, although I was injured 1 year, so kind of took some time off. That's why it's a little bit between 9 and 10 years. But basically did that. And the only reason I bring it up is because I feel that was very formative. It was something that just shaped kind of the way that I am in terms of like my just competitiveness and just like this masochistic sense of like working really hard and like not working, because, you know, like in wrestling, like everybody knows the same moves. Like you get to a certain level and it's kind of like business. Like it's like in life, like we all know the same stuff. Like, right. Like if you work with like some fire protection engineer, right, that you know the same code that he knows, right, he's read the same standards that you've read. It's all the same
reports and plans. It's just how you do it.
And so it's not about like, who knows what moves, like in wrestling, it's about who's executed and who's worked harder, and not just who's working harder, but who's working harder when like nobody's looking. Yeah. Right. Cause like those are the people that win. So it's this like thing where like, it's just you and it's just your work ethic. And you're working like really, really masochistically every single day as a teenage person, waking up at 5 a.m. when it's dark, getting to school. Wrestling season's in the winter. So you'd wake up at like, you know, towards the end of the season when we had you'd have 2-a-days when it came time for regionals and state. And so for the last like month of the season, you're doing 2-a-days. And so you're like a, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old, you know, you're in like your adolescent years and you're waking up every single day when it's dark outside, right, and you're going in and you're grinding it out and you're running stairs and you're, you know, dieting every day. You're eating chicken breasts and salad. Yeah. And, you know, most kids, it's like try to get your kid, you know, like I've got young kids and it's like, try to get your teenager to clean his room. Now try to get that same teenager to wake up at 5 a.m, run stairs, and work out like a maniac in sweats, diet all day, only eat chicken breasts and salad, get out after school, practice for 3 hours, leave the school when it's dark outside. So you're going from dark to dark. As a child, you're basically working that hard. And so I think that like that was an extremely like just formative and something that just shaped the way that I view like work ethic and the way that I view just determination. And like nobody's really looking like you are your only, it's an individual sport, right? So it's like there is no team. Like your success or failure is literally just you and like how hard you want to work and how much you're willing to put in. And if you're cheating on those workouts and if you're cheating on that diet, you're only cheating yourself. Yeah. You're not cheating the team. You're not cheating anybody else. You're literally just cheating yourself. Yeah. So I only bring that up, and I would have brought that up prior to college. I kind of forgot about it, but forgot that I wanted to make that point. But that was something that for me is something that I still identify with. I just still identify with that mindset. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I hated it at the end. It was really hard. Like by the time I got to my senior year, I was really burnt out. Yeah. So I've been doing it since I was 8 or 9 years old. Yeah. But I still take a lot of lessons away. I used to get really, really nervous when I was little, when I would wrestle, and I would like be so nervous. I was like about to pee. Like I would like get like so nervous, like I had to pee, and it'd be like right before the match. Like, I don't know. It was weird. Like I would be like shaking.
It's your fight or flight.
I would be like shaking with nervousness when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I would feel like I had to go to the bathroom, and I would just be so like a wreck. And then I remember being like, by the time I got to my like second or third year, it just like, you kind of got to this point where you're like, there's no sense of getting so nervous. There's no sense of getting so panicked. Like you basically have two choices. You can get really nervous. You can get really like upset and scared. Like you're staring there facing this person that you're about to effectively fight. Yeah. Or you can just get prepared and just realize that like, I just have to be mentally ready, and I'm going to go into this battle. And like, that is what it is. Like, I'm going to basically go toe to toe with this person. Like whatever happens, but like, you can't get nervous. You just have to get ready. Yeah. And so that was, again, like just something that I think really shaped kind of the way that I view business and the way that I view like life since then. And that being said, I was also like, not like super, super academic, like in high school. I was basically like B student, like did the best that I could, to get by. Like I just kind of, I don't know if this was like misguided or just, I just had like this attitude like that I'm going to be successful. Like I just always was like, whatever. I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And then I think mistakenly, I didn't like do enough on school when I was younger. Like I didn't focus enough on school. I didn't get really serious about school until my last few years of college, undergrad. And then when I went to grad school, I got really serious and like made straight A's and did really well later on. But prior to that, I just was kind of like, you know, doing all your homework and studying for all these quizzes is like for suckers. Yeah. Like I had like the wrong attitude, you know, like I just, and it wasn't that I didn't have a chip on my shoulder. I just didn't really care. I was like, I knew I was going to get by, and like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was the wrong attitude. Like, it's not the attitude I want my kids to have. It's not the right attitude. Like, only person I was cheating, like back to the wrestling analogy, is I was cheating myself.
Yeah.
Like, I could have made the A's and, whatever, got a 3.1 or 2 or something. I don't know what my GPA was. It was like good enough, right?
Yeah,
it was like good enough to get into like the state school.
Right.
Did just good enough. Like, took the ACT one time. Like, just good enough. So I was like, I'll take this once, like get into Oklahoma State.
For sure. Yeah, I wanted to get into one thing before we moved off, since we backtracked to the high school thing. Another huge formative piece of your youth was like your proclivity for music and your interest in like writing and being in bands, and like that like really social aspect, and something that you were extremely passionate about through your high school years and a lot of your, even into your professional years, like the beginning of your professional years, super passionate about. So like, speak to your love of music and how that's been like influential in your life.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's like we're kind of glazing over things. So I was like hitting like the resume highlights, but I think that
you're doing the elevator speech, but this is not what that is.
No, it's a longer form. I think that music for me, there's this like creative part too. So there was like the wrestling, like the competitive stuff. And then I always was just like the music and the creative stuff, and then writing, and mainly writing was creative writing. So mainly songs. Like I wrote a lot of songs growing up, which is
in poems too.
Yeah. It was just kind of weird.
We'll post one of your poems in the show notes.
I don't know where that mom's got them all. Like a bunch of old journals of mine. She was like, I found all your old.
These.
She was like, I found all your old journals. She was like, I was reading them the other day. She was like, I cried. I was like, Mom,
she loves you so much. That's like a pure picture of a mom who's like, she's like, little angel, his little poor musings in a notebook somewhere. It's
like my 16-year-old self writing like
cringe, bro.
Songs. It was super cringe. But we had a band in high school that we thought was a really big deal. Our band was called the Nolans, and I think it was like in 9th grade is when I started up that, and I think it went through like 9th to like around this beginning of senior year, we kind of sort of broke up. We had like a reunion thing for a while in senior year, but we had this band and we played a lot of music, and it was like legend in our own mind stuff, like we just like, we were, the one thing I would say that we did really well was that we early on learned a lot of covers. So I think like, freshman year, sophomore year, we had like a list on the wall in our band room of covers that we could play. And it was a lot. Like, I can't remember the total songs, but it was like dozens of songs. I can't remember the total. I don't want to say something wrong, but it was a lot of songs. We had like a list of them. And we would learn a new one and we would practice it and we would write it on this, like, it was just like a piece of like
sheet list.
It was, it was like a sheet. It was like a set list, but it was huge. We hung it from the wall. And I played guitar and I sang and wrote some stuff. There was multiple, it was kind of a hodgepodge. Like we
played a little keys too.
Yeah, we did different things. I mean, I've always kind of played different instruments. Like I found later on in life that my passion is like percussion. Like I love the drums and got really, really into the drums in college.
Yeah.
Dad bought me a drum set from some guy at work. And it was like a pearl drum set. It was like lipstick. No, it was red, I thought. I had a green one. That was yours, was the green one. I thought you had a green
maybe
drum
I'm
set.
thinking of mine.
Yeah, you had a green drum set. I had a red pearl drum set and just played the crap out of it. Just completely ruined my hearing. I mean, just 100% I can't hear
tinnitus.
Now. Oh, just legitimate tinnitus. Just would bang that thing until my hands would like bleed and have calluses on them.
Yeah.
And just played it a lot.
Yeah. The reason why I wanted to touch on that is because I think like wrestling and the music plays to like how you got, and we'll get to it later, but to the podcast, and like this performance piece and this comfort of being in the spotlight or in this scenario where you have to be on. And so, I wanted to touch on that, but.
Well, definitely. I mean, like it helped me like stand up in front of like, standing up in front of what I was going to say back about what we did good is we learned a lot of covers early on, and then we wrote a lot of songs later and had a lot of originals. But the other thing we did really good was that we booked a lot of shows. Like we played a lot of shows. And so whether we were good or not, like a lot of people would be like, you guys suck. That's the other thing about getting really good with criticism, right? It's like this idea that like people just like, criticize you ruthlessly like on Twitter or whatever, and they're like hating on you, and I'm like, well, that's just like I was in a band for all these years, and people used to be like, you guys are, you'd hear all these rumors.
You had rival bands,
rival bands like didn't like you. People didn't, you had people that loved what you did. You had people that thought you sucked. And we played a lot of shows, and one of our bandmates, Will McDonald, who's now gone into a professional career in music and who's had success, like he discovered and signed like the Lumineers, and I've been like really proud of him because he's the one guy in the band that really like committed to me like I want to do music for life. And he's had a lot of success, but he did a phenomenal job of like booking us shows. And so we got to play a lot of really cool venues, like really big venues, like in Oklahoma City, like the Green Room or the Green, what was it called?
It's the Green Room.
The Green Room or the Green Door?
Oh, the Green Door. Yeah,
the Green Door. And then like Kane's Ballroom and like just a bunch of different bigger venues that, not Kane's Ballroom, but Diamond Ballroom. We never played Kane's. We played Diamond. Kane's would be legendary. I wish we would have opened up at Kane's.
We opened up at the same place that Hanson did.
We played at Diamond Ballroom, which is still a big venue. But anyways, like we got to play at like a lot of cool venues, and like we did a lot of like birthday parties and just like dances and all these different things. We played all the time. We played every weekend. And so that was like really good because it taught me to stand in front of people. Like I really don't have a fear of speaking. Yeah, like speaking in front of people and just being put on the spot. So that was like a lot of what we did in high school. And then in college, I played too. I played a little bit. Would play like the random show every once in a while. I'd do like mainly acoustic guitar. I'd do like something on my own and play like kind of solo shows, and wrote like a lot of solo music in college. Really got into solo music, wrote a bunch of different stuff. We did like hip hop albums. I mean, I had like, it was a joke. It was like joke rap, but we did like everything, all different kinds of music, mixing, like electronic stuff, like did a lot of mixing music.
Yeah, some like producing and stuff.
Yeah,
too,
producing a lot of music, recording a lot of stuff, got really into the audio recording. And so that's been like obviously really helpful for me with the podcast, like spending years like recording audio and editing it.
And we didn't talk about either how you were in Stuco in high school and you were running the board on the he had the mixer and the set up the speakers and was instrumental in getting a new sound system when you were. So there's another like little keynote in you having experience with audio and recording and like kind of being around musical equipment. Yeah. Or like recording equipment.
Yeah. Like you did the same thing. It's really funny that we both did that. But like I was in student council and then was like the head. I was basically like the AV guy for our high school.
It's so funny.
Which is funny because that's like the
rag
nerd.
on the nerd in the AV. They're like the AV guys setting up equipment for the whatever. What do they call the meetings in the auditorium? The
assemblies. Yeah. So I would do like all the audio, and then it was cool because I do like the basketball games and other sporting events. I think I got like $20 a game or something like that, which was like this was like 2000s, like early 2000, 2002, 2003, 2004 or something. No, actually when I did this, it was 04, 05 was when I was doing the games. So back then, like $20 was, I mean, you could fill up your whole tank with $20. Put that into perspective now, gas prices. I could fill up my tank with $20 and had an SUV and have money left over sometimes. Like have like $2 left over or like change. Like, $19.50 and I filled up my tank. So that was big money. And sometimes it would be like back-to-back basketball games. They'd have like a girls game and a guys game. And I get like $20 a game. And I just sit there and play music. And I would literally just go to the different basketball players and be like, what do you want to hear? And they would like tell me, like I'd go to like the main basketball like guy that was like the star on the team and I'd be like, what do you want? And he'd be like, I want this song. And I'd go on like Napster or LimeWire. I was like probably LimeWire and like download like the edited version of some rap
yourself over there.
Some rap song over 50 over what was the internet called? The slow internet that we had?
Dial up.
What was the speed? 56. Well, I'm thinking 56K something. I don't know. It was like a really slow speed internet.
Squealing.
And so I would like get on LimeWire after everybody was asleep and download it because you had to use the main phone line because we only had one phone line. We were that family that didn't have the separate. Some people had like the separate phone line for their internet, like the privilege. The 2-wire. Yeah, the people that had the separate.
We didn't have that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't have that, bro.
We had one line for internet, and that was and we used it. But anyways, so that was good, and it got back to the audio side of it, and then graduated and didn't know where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. Picked the hospitality stuff because I just was 18, had no idea. And I was like, I enjoyed like some of the other things we did was we, senior year and junior year, we threw a lot of parties And so I found out like our school got really cracked down on like the dances, like wouldn't let, you know, people, like it was like, no, like they just got really strict, like no, like whatever, you know, putting your arms around people. They were like making space. Yeah, it got weird. It was like they tried to put all these rules in on the dances.
Strange and puritanical for college.
It was high school.
Oh,
high school. This was like junior, senior year, and they got like more strict. Like there were some incidents where people got like drunk and like did some stuff, and like they didn't want PDA, and they put all these rules.
Leave room for Jesus.
They put all these rules in place, like they left the lights on or something. I can't remember what it was. It was something that basically made like the school dances not fun, and everyone was like, "These are terrible," and so we were like, let's just rent out our own venue and throw our own dances. And so we would just throw our own school dances, and we would charge like whatever, $15 a person or $10 a person. And we were making like, you know, $2 or $3 grand in a single evening in high school, split among a couple guys. And it was like very entrepreneurial. And we're like, and we made a lot of money for back then. I mean, it was a lot of money just in general. And I remember being like, that's awesome. And then the band stuff. So I was like, I knew I liked this entertainment aspect. And it's funny because later on, maybe we'll talk about what I'm doing now. And I'm actually like using that degree. Yeah. But I ended up so I got about 2 years into the hospitality stuff and realized like pretty quickly, like as soon as I started taking like the electives, or not the electives, excuse me. As soon as I got past like the general stuff and got into the actual core classes, I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like this. I was like, I don't want to be working while everybody else is having fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to work in a kitchen. I don't want to work at a restaurant. I don't want to work. I mean, like, I kind of like, holidays. Like, I was like, I kind of like hotels. I thought was cool because you could like live different places. I really like the event planning side, but even event planning is just like, it's brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal. Like I worked like for an event planner for a long time, like over a year. Is a job in college, like my junior year, and it was like weddings and just like all this stuff, and it was freaking brutal.
Yeah, I wanted to talk like internships or different work roles you had in college. Yeah, and maybe even I think you worked in high school too. You had some dingy ones, but
yeah, dude, I started working in high school. I did random stuff like I mowed. I did like the lawn thing for that was like my first work that I did. Like when I turned 16 and I actually needed money, it was mowing lawns, and it was like really easy because I had like I had our lawn, and mom and dad gave me like $20 to mow it or something, $15. I can't remember. They upped it later. Like mow the yard, trim, weed eat, and we'll give you this. And then like our next door neighbor that was right next to us, I did their yard for years and would get $20 or $25. And so like, you know, in the summer when you're mowing once a week, that's like $50. And this again is like in the early 2000s. Right. This is when I was younger. This was like 2001 or something. So
yeah, early 2000s.
2002 maybe.
2001, 2002.
And so that was like a ton of money back then. And then I picked up another couple houses like in our neighborhood. So I think at the peak I was doing 3 or 4 houses, which wasn't a lot, but like it was enough to where like, you know, easily cover the money for the gas and then for doing that. So that was like my first jobs. And then mom and dad got me this one job. The only job, dude, that job, the only job I've ever just like walked out and quit on. And I'm not proud of it, but it was a terrible job. I hated it, but it was like this job where I was like an imager, which I feel bad because there's a lot of people in oil and gas that do imaging. But I was like sitting in this warehouse, and it was like a summer job.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like after my senior year, and it was like $10 an hour, which I remember was huge. So I think at the time, the standard wage was like $5 something. It was like $5 and
sounds right.
$5.25 or something. I don't know, something like that. So it was like double standard wage almost. And I was like, that's huge. I was like, this is big money. I was like, $10 an hour. I was like, this is big time.
Because it was brutal.
And dude, it was the worst job I've ever had. Like it was a straight up like just a sweatshop. Like they like had us in this big warehouse.
Unconditioned warehouse.
And it was like this huge, I think it was an insurance company, and they had everything was paper records, and they wanted to like digitize everything. And it was it was like one of the major insurance companies, and it was for like the entire Oklahoma branch.
Yeah, like Liberty Mutual.
Yeah, and it was like every record for this like whole thing. And so there was just an assembly line, and you weren't even like doing the whole part of it. You were just like, your job for the day would just be like, no, it'd be like remove the staple. It was like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was a staple, like people would hand you a thing and you just like remove staples one day and then like hand it to the next guy. And then the next guy would like sort the papers, and like one person would like scan them. It was literally like an assembly line job.
Oh man.
And I did that job for like less than a month.
I thought it was like 2 days.
No, it was less than.
I thought it was like 3 days, and you were like, I'm done.
I had a pay period. I feel like, I don't know. It was some short period of time, but I was going nuts, dude. And it was like all this thing with these people, and all the people that I worked with were adults. Like there was no other like, I mean, I was like probably 17 or 18. So I guess I was technically an adult, but it was like all like older adults. It was like people in their like 20s, 30s and 40s. And every, like, you know, you get like 1 15-minute break and everybody like smoking cigarettes and stuff. And you're just like sitting there like, and this is like before cell phones. I mean, I think I had like a brick phone. I couldn't even text. It was like texting cost money. And so you couldn't text. So you didn't have the internet. You didn't have phones. You get a 15-minute break. And I didn't drink like coffee back then. So you just like sit there and you're like, this is miserable. This is miserable, dude.
Misery.
You just get out and like sit there and watch these people smoke cigarettes. You couldn't even like get on your phone and get on Twitter or something. You just sit there. And so that job was terrible. And then and I quit, and it was awful. But
Mom and Dad were
they were so mad that I quit that job. They were just like, what? Like I got in a huge trouble.
Yeah.
I just like quit that job. I was like, I can't, dude. I was like, I can't do this job. It's the only job I've ever like really just quit like that. Kind of like abruptly. But then I worked. So then I just started mowing again that summer, and it was plenty of money. I just went back to I tried to pick up another couple of yards, but did that. And then in college, I worked every summer. And then from junior year on, I think I worked even during the school year for a lot of years. And I did like Oak Tree Golf Course, which was like one of my favorite jobs of all time. And that was back when it was the men's course. And I loved it. It was just a fantastic. It was like,
you work PGA one year?
Yeah, I got to work the senior PGA championship. And that was just like, you could just like capture a moment in your life in time. It was just I have this very romantic feeling about that job.
Yeah.
It was like a movie. It was like Caddyshack, or there's a great series on maybe on Netflix or Prime. I can't remember, but it's one about this kid that works at a golf club. I think there's like
that's like a typical like college, high school job too, like working at a golf course, running carts. Like,
dude, it was the best job.
Just with your buddies,
hanging out with like super rich people that were just like giving us tips all the time. like I think at the time, like it was the men's club, so it was still like, I think they had one woman they'd allow because they got pressured like at the end of the 90s to like let a woman join. And so, like, again, I feel really archaic. I feel really old, like talking about
back in the day when there was only men.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And they let a woman join. She was really good, and she played all the time. I can't remember her name, but it was like dudes, and there were still like rules on the course where like men could play with their shirts off because it was the men's club.
What?
So as long as you weren't within sight of the clubhouse, you could play shirtless.
What?
And there was like old dudes literally with like hairy chest, big beer bellies playing with their shirts off.
No.
I swear, dude, at Oak Tree.
That's wild.
Oak Tree
that
Men's
seems
Club.
Like, I would say you were lying if that.
No, dude, true story. And there were like PGA professionals that played there.
This guy's wailing on golf balls just like.
It was old school, man. It was old school. And it was fun. It was like it was just a great job. You'd drive around the ball picker out on the driving range, and people would hit you with the ball, and you're really loud, like just hit the thing, you know. And so that was like a job that I just loved. And then my sophomore year, I worked at Campus Park, which was and I worked at part of the school year too. I worked during the semester, but then all summer, and it was a leasing job where I was a leasing agent for apartments. At the time was like one of the biggest apartment complexes. It was huge. It was like a big it's a big like a complex of like multifamilies, a bunch of buildings. I mean, they had a ton of buildings, and it was a great job. I think I want to say it was like 200 or 400, some amount per lease, like that I got signed. So I made like some decent money, like, you know, $7 an hour or something, or, you know, whatever. It was higher than minimum wage, which at the time was a big deal. Like, right, like if you could get like a $7.50 an hour job and minimum wage was $5.25, you were crushing it. You're moving. And you know, I had that job, and I think it was like a $200 or something a lease. No, it couldn't have been that much. Had to have been less. Maybe it was like $50 a lease. And if I got a lot of them were 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And we made each kid do an individual lease because it was kids, and we made their parents sign. So like if I got a 4-bedroom sign, that was $200. I think that's how it was. So it was like $50 a lease. And it was like, if I got a 4-bed, that was a big deal because I could get $200.
Right.
And they waited to the end of the summer. And so it was like you built up this huge commission, and then they didn't pay it to you in the summer. So you had to stick it out. You had to have the job for all summer long. And at the end, they would tally up. tally up your commission. And I think I got a check for like, I can't remember what it was, like $5,000 or $6,000. And I remember being like this, and I just remember being like, I thought I was just the richest person in the world. And like, the crazy thing is that $5,000 or $6,000, I put it in a savings account, and that was money that I literally used to buy my first house. Wow. That was part of my down payment on the first house that I ever had, like years later when I was like in my mid 20s. And I saved, I mean, I spent some of it, but at the time I really didn't have a need for it. And I was just like, that was like when I started, that was my very first money that I ever saved. Really like big money. Like I have like, $1,000 or less than $1,000 in like a savings account. Right. But like, that was like the first money that I ever was like crazy. Was that I was like, I felt like wealthy, right? Yeah. I was like, holy crap. I was like, I have $5,000. I was like, how many people do you know that are this age that have $5,000? It's hard as a college kid. And it was, I mean, it's hard as just an adult. Yeah. To save that much money. And so like that, I remember being like a huge deal, and it was a good job. And then I remember I ended up quitting like junior year during the year, cause like my boss was like really working me hard. And I was like, dude, my junior year, no, it was maybe it was my senior year, but I had to take a bunch of hours to graduate in 4 years. I got my undergrad in 4 years. And so I had to do an internship. And that was the other thing, is I had to do an internship. Yeah. And so I got an internship for my undergrad with an event planner on campus. They had the Wes Watkins Center. Mm-hmm. And that was a fantastic job. It was like event planning internship or whatever, which was really just manual labor. That's just like a fancy way for them to be like event planning. They're like, just move these tables and chairs around for like 7 hours. And we'll give you this credit to say you're an intern. I mean, I did get to do some of the business side of it. Like they got me in on the contract negotiations and like how much we charged and like all the different, like the business stuff, I got like in that, but mainly like my main job was just like moving chairs. They're like, we need not that many. Like we need 1,000 chairs for this conference, like put into this room. And I need it in this configuration. They would like, I would draw out a map and I would move. And it was a cool job. Like I had a really good boss, and I could listen to music and do that. So I'm kind of going into a lot of details on these old jobs, but I don't know, it is whatever's origin story. So did that for a long time. Worked during the school year. The other thing was really flexible. They let me work at night. So like if I had like classes and tests and stuff, I could come in at like 9 o'clock at night and work till like midnight. And I could just like put headphones in, and there's nobody to be there, had a key, just go into the building. And as long as I got like the thing set up, like they didn't care. Wow. And so I did that. And so it was really flexible for me. And like I could work like while school was going, and I could go to school and I could work. And then did other stuff in hospitality. Like I'll kind of fast forward a little bit because we're getting long winded, but it's a podcast. We're only 40 minutes in. If you're listening to this, you really care about my origin story. You want to hear this. But I mean, like at the end of the day, I didn't really talk about this stuff on the pod. Like this is just me. Like there's just like so much crazy. Like, I mean, I'm just going to say it now because it's not the beginning, but like there's people literally on Twitter this week saying that I'm a trust fund kid. And like, there's like a bunch of people tweeting that like I'm a trust fund kid, and then like I'm not self-made, and that like I like got all my money like inherited or whatever. And it's like our parents like grew up like our dads
fought and scrapped and clawed for everything that we had, man. Right. I remember years where we didn't have anything, and things were tight, and that's still sewn into my bones and who I am as a person. So yeah, that's hurtful. I remember like going into, this is like super personal, but dad had like lost his job, and mom had like told me, I was like going to wrestling practice, and we were like going in, you were there. I think you went in with me. I believe you were little. And she was like, drop me off. And she's like, by the way, she's like, I don't want you to worry. She's like, but dad lost his job. It was like a week before Christmas. God. And she was like, Christmas is going to be really tough this year or whatever. And I was just like, why would you? Number one, I was like, way to drop the bomb on me. Like right before I'm going into sports practice. I'm just like sitting there like, holy crap. But just like stuff like that. It's like, people, I take it personally a little bit. I shouldn't, like the criticism stuff. And maybe we'll get to that later on why, like you learn to roll with it. But it's frustrating to see people being like, this person didn't have to work for anything. Everything was given to him. He's a trust fund kid. Right. And then like, it's like people propagating that and like retweeting it. And then it becoming like a thing where they're like, yeah, this is this trust fund guy. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is like a crazy thing. You're entirely self-made, and like everything you've been through and the trials, and to totally just like try to take the legs out of everything you've built. It's just nonsense. But well, and I think part of like talking about these stories and going into these details is that like a lot of the podcasts for me is a journal. It's like, used to being writing in journals, and now it's like
I don't write as much anymore. And I kind of have like a weird phobia of writing. And I want to start writing more. I like technical writing. Like I've never been a technical writer. I've always been a creative writer.
Right.
And I think that it bleeds through a lot when I try to write technical. It's like really hard for me because I have a lot of emotion.
Right.
Like when I write. And so I want to get better at it. But to me, like talking about this and telling these stories is like, when do people sit down and tell the story about the jobs they had when they were younger and record it and put it into a podcast that like one day like their kids could listen to it? Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, and I learned stuff about you, and I've known you my entire existence. So like, and there's some sort of catharsis that comes from like even talking about your story or going through the motions of like this. And it's all interesting stuff. I mean, the reason why people listen to podcasts, or I can speak for myself, the reason why I listen to people and their stories is like, it's inspiring. So I think it's all valid, but
yeah, no, for sure. And it's like, when else am I going to record this and have it, you know?
Yeah.
And like, if people want to listen to it, they can listen to it. I mean, like,
nobody's forcing you. If you made it this long, you're a super fan.
You haven't even got to the part where I talk about the other stuff that we've done, like since after college. Like this is all stuff that just is like
the setup.
Formative, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna burp. Excuse me.
So let's move on to the MBA. Let's move on.
Yeah, so I got through I hated that degree. I didn't want to do it. I went to my advisor and they were like, well, you're going to be in college for 5 years if you change your major. This was like sophomore year. And I was like, I want to change my major to like business. And they were like, it's too late. Like you've already taken these classes end of sophomore year.
Right.
And they were like, if you want to change to business, then you're going to be here for 5 years. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm trying to remember when I did that burp so I can cut that out. That was nasty. 45 minutes. And so I was like, and so I basically was like, okay, that's fine. I guess I'll just stick it out. Because to me, it was important to graduate in 4 years. Like I didn't want to be in an undergrad for more than 4 years.
Right.
And so my senior year, I remember one semester I took 19 hours. And the other semester, my first semester, senior year, I took 21 hours in one semester.
Wow.
21.
That's a lot.
And then my second semester, I took 19 hours. And part of the reason why I had to take so many was because I had like withdrawn from a bunch of classes. Like I had classes where I got into I tried to take like Spanish one year. I was like, if you're in a hotel restaurant, I was like, I'll take Spanish. Never taken Spanish in my life.
Spanish is hard, man.
And it was like literally
5-hour class.
It was a 5-hour class every day, 7:30 a.m., 5 days a week. Oh. And like I got in there the first day and they gave you a paragraph in Spanish and they were like translated. And I was like, I've never taken Spanish. And they were like, then you're going to fail this class. And I was just like, really stubborn. I was like, no, I'm not. And tried to stick in it. And like 4 weeks in, I was like, I'm going to fail this class, and like just withdrew. So like I had like multiple years. And then that was in like not that many hours. So that was a 5-hour class.
Yeah.
So like I got crushed on that. Had to take more. And so it was like electives that like I had to take a bunch of. So took a lot of hours. My senior year, got graduated, and then and I graduated in 2009. So to put that into context, 2008 was the biggest shit show in the history of the U.S. economy, other than maybe this COVID stuff, which is pretty close because it's pretty bad. But it was the Great Recession. So it was the worst at that time. It was the worst U.S. economy since the 1930s, since the Great Depression, and it was the late fall of 2008. And the career fair, like no companies even showed up. Like we went to the career fair and they sent us out an email and they were like embarrassed. They're like, half the companies pulled out, and the companies that were there, nobody was hiring anybody. It was like, we're here just because like we paid for this or whatever, or they signed up for it. And so there wasn't a ton of jobs. On top of that, I had a degree that I didn't really want to do. All that being said, I actually had opportunities I had multiple job offers. I had a job offer for Southern Hills in Oklahoma, or in Tulsa, which is a prestigious golf course. And it was a really good paying job. I think it was like $65,000 a year, which is actually like more money than I made after I got an MBA. Cause I didn't make that much money out of college, but it was nights, weekends, and it was ruthless. And the guy was like, you can make 6 figures in this job. And I remember being like, 22 years old and being like, holy cow, I can make 6 figures. And I talked to people one of my really good friends, his sister worked there, and I talked to her and she was like, this is the worst job ever. She's like, this guy works people. And he's like, the reason why that manager position is open that makes all that money is because people keep quitting. And she's like, this guy works people till, she's like, he'll be working till like 2 a.m. on weekends, every weekend. He'll be calling you up there at night. He's like, she was like, members or like, basically just like go give you a holler, and then you got to like just drop whatever you're doing. You got a birthday or a holiday. Don't plan on any of that. You're never going to do it. You're going to be up at the club.
Wow.
And so it was just a really like, I just got very terrible reviews. And so this guy was like dangling. He's like, you can work overtime and make like 6 figures at this job. And I was just like, and plus I like didn't want to do hospitality. I was like, this is not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
Had another job offer doing like a liquor store, like a sales rep for like liquor stores. And it was like pretty good money. I had like random stuff that like I'd gotten job offers for. One like event planning thing that wasn't very good money, but it was like kind of cool and I could have maybe traveled. But basically it was just like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. And dad was like, you know, whatever you pick that you're going to do, he was like, this is going to put you on a path, right? Like it's going to put you on a trajectory to where like you're going to look up and like the decisions you make now, they don't seem like a big deal. Like you can change them, but like at some point in the future, this is going to turn into something that really like affected your life. Like the choices that you made.
Right.
And so it was 2009, I graduated and I'm like I guess like privilege is the word, but like I basically was just like, went back to school and I wanted to get an MBA, which is kind of in a weird way, like not a good thing. I mean, cause like if you have an MBA and you don't have like a bunch of business experience, your resume is not good. You're overqualified. And I wouldn't say that that's like a positive thing, but it was the worst economy in the US history. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still felt very lost in terms of like, it was like making that leap into the real world. And so I just like didn't even apply anywhere. It was like last minute. Like I just didn't want to take those job offers and literally just signed up, went to my advisor again and signed up and was like, sign up for the GMAT or something, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And went over to some building on OSU's campus, took the GMAT, got a high enough score to get into OSU and like a handful of other colleges. Like I probably could have gone to like maybe OU. I don't know. There was like a few like OU, maybe like, you know, I didn't get like high enough score to go to like some prestigious MBA.
Right.
But I got a high enough score to get into the program and I just applied and like got in and then got pretty serious at that point. Cause that's the point in my life where I was like, okay, like I've kind of just been like skating by, like getting a degree that was easy. Like I didn't get an engineering degree. I didn't get even a finance degree. Like I got a pretty easy degree. And now it's like, okay, wait a second. Like now I actually have to go into the real world. So, went to the MBA program full time. I'm conflicted about, you know, a lot of people get MBAs. They do like less than half the hours that I did. There's people that have MBAs that did a third of the hours that I did.
Wow.
I did a lot of hours. I did 2 full years of like 12 hours. So whatever that is, 4 semesters of 12 hours. And you know, people get MBAs for a lot less than that in terms of hours.
Like 30 hours commonly I see for masters.
Yeah, it was like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
No, never mind.
50 hours? Is that? It was like 50 hours-ish.
50 hours? I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, so 24 and 24. So it was close to 50 hours, 48 hours, whatever it was, but it was like a full-time MBA. And then afterwards I felt kind of cheated because I was like, I saw people that got these part-time MBAs and it's like the same thing. And then I realized like MBA, I'm like, what does this even mean? I'm like, now I look at MBAs and I'm like, there's no way that I would go after the amount of like entrepreneurship that I've done in my life, there is no way that I would recommend someone take that path. But for me, it was just like, I wasn't ready. I hadn't grown up yet and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was a blessing because I got a really good internship at Williams Midstream in Tulsa. Yeah. And that story is really good. And I may have told it on the podcast before. I can't remember. But the story was basically that it was the career fair and it was 2010. I guess this was like a year later. And it was 2009 in the fall. And he was like, when's the business career fair? And I was like, it's tomorrow. And he's like, or 2 days from now. And he's like, well, what about the one on like Wednesday or something? Mine was on Thursday. And I was like, well, that one's like the engineering career fair. Cause he had like known about it from work and he knew people were going. Right. And so like, I'm sorry, I'm turning this on Do Not Disturb. And so he basically was like, well, what about the one on Wednesday? And I was like, I think it's like engineering only. And he's like, you know what? He's like, you should go to that one. And I was like, what? And he's like, you should go to the engineering one. He's like, I know. He's like, from our company. He's like, he worked at Chesapeake at the time. He's like, we send the same recruiters. He's like, for the engineering one as we do for the business one.
Right.
And he's like, you should go to that one. And he's like, you should go talk to the companies you want to apply for. And you should tell them that you're there early because you want to get a scoop on the competition. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, I'm not doing that. And I was like super embarrassed.
That's
He was like,
typical dad hustle,
dude,
though.
typical dad hustle. He's like, you can go first and talk to all the recruiters before the other business candidates.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no. I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, that sounds crazy. And he just like ridiculed me and was like, you need to do it. And I was just like, all right. He like, gave me really the hard press. And I felt a lot of pressure because of the reasons that I mentioned, because of like getting an MBA and being like overqualified now and just like not knowing what I wanted to do. So I went and it was largely how I expected. People were looking at me like I was an idiot. Like I've never had more people just be like, what are you doing here? Like people just like glazed over when I was telling them why I was there. They were just staring at me like, you are like,
That's
what
the
do you,
worst.
they were like, well, you can come back tomorrow and we'll talk to you. Like everybody I talked to was just like, dude, it was bizarre. Cause it was like an engineering career. It was the engineering career fair. I wasn't an engineer and I was walking around to the booths, but everybody but one person, this guy named Chris, and he worked for Williams. And he was the business recruiter. And he was there with the engineering recruiters. And just so happened, I luckily talked to him and he lit up, dude. Lit up like a Christmas. This guy was like, I love it. He was just like, that's the best thing I've heard all day today. He's like, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, we have this dinner tonight that's already full. He's like, we've already like basically picked who our interns that we want to be. Like they already like picked their interns at that point. Because Williams had like this thing where you applied early before the career fair. Like I was just so... Yeah, like you had to like, we talked about this when you were in college. Like you had already like, basically by the time the career fair is there, if you're going around and talking to people, like it's too late. Like interns are already picked at that point. People have already like got interviews set up.
Right.
And they've already applied like months in advance.
Yeah.
And I'm just like out to lunch, like don't even really know what's going on. And this guy was like, we already basically have our interns picked. He's like, and we have a dinner for the interns, even though the career fair is today. He's like, but I want you to come to the dinner. He's like, because I love that you're here and you're doing this.
Wow.
And
how crazy.
I know,
what a
dude.
twist of, talk about moments in your life that's like such a pivotal moment, like a twist of fate that
if
it wouldn't have happened, like,
and
who
the
knows?
crazy thing is that like that job being in midstream business development was what I ended up getting an internship in. Like not only did I go to the dinner,
of your life.
changed the course of my life, and I went there and I went to the dinner, talked to the guy, went through the interview process, got the job, and then they didn't let you pick what they put you in. They had like a committee of people. Williams was like really big and bureaucratic, and they had a committee of people, and they picked what you got to do based on how they assessed you and your personality traits.
What?
So, at the time, I didn't know. I thought I wanted to be in like finance, right? And I told them that because they made you write down like, what do you want to be? And I was like, finance, I think. And I wrote that down, and they were like, no, you're BD. Like your business development. They're like,
They knew. They were like, they knew. They made a good call.
They made a good call. They were like, your business development. You need to be in business development. And so yeah, I got that intern.
You would have suffered in finance,
oh, dude, or accounting. I just would have been miserable. And so I got that job, and it was amazing. Like I loved everything about oil and gas and midstream. And the crazy thing is, like, I spent all this time trying to not work in oil and gas because Dad was like, because I saw it growing up. I saw him getting laid off. I saw all the times when we were like, things were really lean as a family, and like we didn't have the Christmases. Like we had good Christmas. I mean, like, but like times when things weren't like we wanted to have.
Scary times.
Scary times as a family. And so like I like was freaked out by it. But then when I got in oil and gas, I was like, I love this. Like it was business, it was engineering. I mean, I got to sit as a fly on the wall and listen to people talk about these highly, highly technical subjects, but then talk about the business angle of those subjects and how we were going to like, turn it into a profitable thing. Like, how do we negotiate this deal? And like part of negotiating that deal was you had to understand the engineering. It's like, how are we going to build this out? How much is it going to cost? Like, what's the gas quality? All these logistics, all these things. And so, land. I mean, I remember I worked in the Marcellus Shale at that time, and that was like exploding. It was like it was just 2010. Wow. So it was like the Marcellus Shale was just blowing up. Boom. And I remember looking at all these plays, and it was like one of the things we like really wanted to lay this trunk line, and there was like a train track there, and this company owned all the right of way, and they were like, they're never going to give us right away just because they won't, just because they're like, screw you. Like, we're not going to let you guys lay a pipeline underneath this train. What? And just like little things like that. And like, I remember when I went to Pittsburgh with Clint Soderstrom was a guy that was a mentor at the time and somebody that worked there. And he was in their BD office up in Pennsylvania, and he took me to like some meeting, and we went and met with like the railroad company.
Interesting.
That was like, we were trying to get right away. So I was doing like everything from like, they weren't going to give us right away, but like I went, like,
but this is a cool experience.
Yeah.
Though. Like
it was like everything
it's
from
good
like
to go through those where you know you're going to get blown out of the air.
Yeah. They were just like, yeah, thanks for taking us to lunch, but like, we're not,
our
bosses aren't going to approve this right away. And so it was like, we got to meet, do things like finance, I got to sit in with engineering meetings. I got to do land stuff. I got to do, macro supply demand. I think like my final project was like working on like a macro, like supply demand picture for the downstream capacity out of the Marcellus shale. And Utica wasn't even really a thing then. So it was like residue and NGL takeaway out of residues, like just natural gas. Takeaway out of the Northeast, and talking about the different dynamics and like the political stuff and all the regulatory things. And it was like, I got to learn like basically midstream in a crash course, and I loved it. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. Man. I remember being like, this is amazing. Like I liked everything about it. And there was a human piece to it. There was a technical piece to it. It was interesting. And I was really fortunate. It's like you with fire protection. Like you really got lucky. To find something that you wanted to.
I mean, it all boiled down to like, just like you, one moment. I went in, I talked to a career counselor, was telling him, hey, this degree's not working out. Like I just want to get a good job. I want to be in an industry with a good job. And he was like, well, why don't you try fire protection? It was a moment that would change the course of my entire life.
Yeah, dude.
And it's like those little strange kind of pivotal moments that really define you at the end of the day. And it's like, how could that ever happen again? If you were to do the same thing again, like
it's scary. I mean, like you think back about life, and like even like meeting my wife, like I met Michelle. Like you were there when I met Michelle, and that crazy.
Yeah,
we don't need to tell that story, but
we'll talk about pivotal moments in your life.
Actually, we'll tell that story, and maybe she'll listen to the podcast. She never does.
Maybe
but we were
we'll clip it for her.
Yeah, we were at some party, and you'd come up from high school, and you were underage probably. So wasn't good, but we were hanging out at a party, and you were like, it was like a football game, and Frank came up with you.
Yeah.
And I
stayed.
Like, and I was like, you let him stay the night. I was like, he should hang out tonight. And you were like,
awesome.
And like, we went to some party, and we got to the party, and I saw just the absolute most attractive girl at the party, hands down. I was like, this is the hottest girl here. And I was like really cocky older brother. I was like, I'm going to go talk to the hottest girl at this party.
I was sitting in the corner with a drink in my hand, just stupefied because I was not ready for a college party and just watching Max go in to make moves.
I was like, I'm gonna go talk to the most attractive girl at this party, and she was hands down. And I went in and talked to her, and then we ended up not really even dating them, but that's when I first met her, and we talked for a while. But anyways, we dated later, years later. But it's just funny that's the first time I met her. Isn't that crazy that you were there the
it seems weird.
The night that I met my wife.
It seems like out of a TV show or something.
Talk about like pivotal weird moments.
Yeah.
Cause like that's when like we like traded each other's contact information. And then when I reached out to her later, like when we started dating, it was like from that moment.
Wow.
Like really crazy. But getting back to like recording these things and having these memories and like being kind of a journal.
Yeah.
To me, like that's a cool story that it's pivotal.
I mean, like we don't have to go into it, but the tracksuit guy who's trying to spit game before you, he was real cringe.
Yeah, dude.
He's like
full I basically saved her from that guy.
That guy was
at the party.
Ooh, he's bad, dude.
He had his I think he was like a football player. He had like his football tracksuit on. He was wearing like his uni to the party basically.
Nah,
and I saved her from that guy.
Cringe.
But yeah, it was cringe. But yeah, so did the Williams thing, and then we got came back and finished my MBA. This is a good break. I'm gonna take a leak real quick. We're at 1 hour.
Yeah, man. I mean, like we haven't even basically breached the professional stuff. But you do.